The protagonist has transmigrated to another world that will soon be affected by an outbreak of apocalyptic virus. He knows of all the events thanks to the system and cannot prevent the natural disaster from happening. In addition, his life depends on him to save people. So his first goal in the current world is to create a civilization where he will be the captain and make all the decisions. After that, you'll recruit the best talents to have by your side. The story begins in an ordinary city. People live normally and carry out their usual tasks. A passerby talks on the phone with his girlfriend, trying to explain that he did not cheat on her. He only offered a bath to a girl. The girlfriend did not believe this story. Suddenly, this guy's attention is directed to a portal that opens in the sky, above his head. He looks impressed at it because it was not something common to see. From that portal, a man appears. He is our protagonist Shin, a guy who can travel between parallel worlds. He just arrived from a trip from another world, and there he was able to save 2 million people. The system warns that Shin won a point for each person saved, totaling 2 million points. These points can be used to spend on salvation items. The system shows a cute image and congratulates him. Now he is a certified doomsday savior. This cute image was not very well seen by the protagonist. He says it is a visual pollution. Deep down, Shin likes to receive the title of savior. He brags, saying that he had to spend all the points to get the universal cure. If it weren't for him, 2 million people would have become food for the zombies. Shin asks if the system agrees, but the system is confused by this question. He warns the protagonist that he doesn't have to worry too much about the details of the other world. The survival of civilization is the only interest of a savior. 2 million people saved will be enough to maintain humanity. They will continue to reproduce and will be able to turn the world into what it was in the past. After that, the system flashes an alert, informing Shin that to reach the 9th level he needs several trillion points, so he needs to continue with his good work. It's so much point that the protagonist is even too lazy to look. He just understands that it will be difficult to return home. Shin remembers what happened in the previous world and learns something. To earn more points, he can't work alone. Maybe creating an organization with talented people can be useful. It is a learning that the protagonist will keep in mind to save this new world. At that moment, he goes down to the ground and asks the system to make a summary about the place. The system says that this world that is about to be destroyed is the sad 2342 sector. The rapid economic growth has brought some needs, such as in the entertainment industry. The food industry is the most important in this world that is famous for its food. The protagonist passes by the place, carefully observing the information. The system continues to say that recently this whole world has been caught by the negative effects of extreme weather conditions. With frequent occurrences of high temperatures and extreme cold, floods and droughts have led to a drastic reduction in food and energy production. This caused international tensions, resulting in small battles. Shin notes that this place is the same as his world. Suddenly, 2 men in suits start watching him. The protagonist notices this, and the system asks if he wants to use the points to buy the hidden identity item. Shin denies it. He doesn't want to spend any points and also thinks it's a good time to understand the forces of this world. At that moment, our boy is called by a female voice. She asks if he wants to try Miss Mo's new dish. Fong refuses, but then the woman says that the food will not cost anything. The scene changes to inside a restaurant, where we can see the protagonist at one of the tables waiting to eat. Apparently he couldn't refuse free food. Next to her, other men also wait for the banquet. They meet the chef and comment that her food is very good. A guy says that today was a lucky day. It's not every day that you can eat something personally prepared by Miss Mo. At that moment, a woman walks towards the table. She thanks everyone for taking the time to come and attend the tasting banquet. The protagonist stares firmly into the boss's eyes. She introduces herself as Mo Chio, then explains that the food is a Chinese cake called flour. Among the flowers, the boss claps her hands and several waiters appear with the dishes. They all serve on the spot. The protagonist observes how good the appearance is. He assumes that it is like a bean cake, so it does not create many expectations, but as soon as he eats, something different happens. He has never tasted this taste before. It is so good that Shin feels his body being healed inside. A happiness invades his brain. The protagonist remembers that he hasn't eaten for a long time. Since he met the system, the boss observes his actions from afar, not knowing if he liked it or not. Then she approaches, asking what the boy thought of his work. The protagonist had bulging eyes and then replied that it was amazing. This food was able to make him fall in love with this world. Cho was surprised by this statement. The protagonist keeps saying that something like this should not be destroyed with the world. The boss replies that she can't understand what he's talking about. Shun says that maybe he doesn't have time to explain. Suddenly, those men in suits appear behind the boss. The protagonist compliments his speech by saying that he won't have time because the people who are behind him have already arrived. Cho turns to the men and asks who they are. The man pulls out a badge and introduces himself as Cha Yong Jang. the head of the Special Affairs Department. He says that he needs to talk to the young man sitting at the table. Cho refuses. She says that all her customers are in the middle of the tasting. They can't come in like that and interrupt everything. Another guy joins the conversation and asks the girl to cooperate with the Special Affairs Department because Shin is not an ordinary guy as she thinks. At this point, the protagonist says that they really are at the top of the ranking of executives and coordinators. After all, in less than a few hours they got his location. What a scared look. The security guard asks what his goal is. Shun replies that he must see for himself. The next moment the boy calls the system. Several hieroglyphs appear on the floor and ceiling. People look without understanding what these characters are. The system informs that the projection has been finished. A hologram appears in front of everyone informing that this world will be destroyed in 3 years. People see the city totally destroyed. The protagonist presents himself as the savior of this world and his goal is to save them from this destruction. Young looks at the holographic projection and starts to sweat cold. He nervously asks why they should believe in a stranger who claims to be the savior of the world. Shun replies that he is a kind of time manipulator and can prove it. The men ask how. The protagonist replies that he has some abilities. One of them is prediction, so he offers to give some information from the future and prove that his prophecy is correct. This is something impossible for the members of the Department of Special Affairs. The protagonist reaffirms that he is the only one who can save this world from destruction. Minutes later, Young holds in his hands the predictions made by Shun. He thinks it is crazy. The protagonist tells Young that he understands that his superiors will need some time to check the forecast, but it is good not to postpone the rescue response. At that moment, the man goes back to reading the predictions. The first says that today at 5 o'clock an earthquake of magnitude 5 will hit Songsan County, resulting in the death of 3 people. The second forecast informs that today at 9:28 p.m., an earthquake and tsunami of magnitude 6 will hit the coast of Virumala, leaving 123 people missing. The last forecast is today 11:32 p.m. A flight to Western Asia, called a 3562, will crash due to extreme weather conditions, resulting in the death of 175 people. Young looks at the protagonist who seems calm. He wonders if there is a way for a plane crash to be predicted. If the information is true, these events will affect thousands or even millions of lives. At that moment, Young orders his security guard to close the tasting banquet and remove everyone from the room, which tries to intervene. Young tells the protagonist that he will pass the information to the superiors personally. Shun replies that from now on they will be tested. It is good that everyone strives to pass the test. The men are scared by this. The protagonist ends by saying that he hopes they prove that this world deserves to be saved. A little later, the scene changes to the Special Affairs Department room. Everyone watches a screen that shows Shun. Suddenly, a man punches the table in frustration. He says that all this can only be a joke. Even if this guy has some power, they can't believe it's the end of the world. A guy near the screen named Chu Lin joins the conversation. He says that he has already verified Shin's identity and the boy seems to be serious. So to ensure safety, sent a rescue team to the forecast areas. They must evacuate as soon as possible. The old man with a beard thinks it is absurd that Lin believe it. The man next to him also thinks that this must be a lie. He says that every year a crazy person appears talking about apocalypse and making prophecies. It's a waste of time to take this seriously. Lin asks the leaders to calm down. He just sent some police and fire trucks to patrol the places, but they didn't say anything about the prophecy. They just asked the residents of the high-risk area to leave for a while. At that moment, Lin gives an intimidating smile. He says that if they close their eyes to this prophecy and it is true, it will be the leaders who will take all the blame for the lives of the victims. The men are silent, recognizing the truth of these words. Suddenly, the door opens and someone says that Lin should not be so aggressive. 2 men enter the room. The first says that the government's credibility will be at stake if the public finds out that federal funds were spent on something so ridiculous. Lin recognizes this man as the commander of the Department of Special Affairs, the most important figure in that room. The man with glasses joins the conversation and says that there are no traces of earthquake in Songsan County. Lin tries to defend his point of view. He says that it was the commander himself who taught that the purpose of the Special Affairs Department is to be responsible for the safety of people. If the prediction is true, it will cause immeasurable losses. It is important that they take this seriously. The commander still thinks it is all nonsense. Young approaches, saying that there is a minute left for the first prophecy to come true. At that moment, the guy with glasses reveals that they have already given the order to eliminate Shin, so there is no reason to wait for any prophecy to happen. Moreover, he himself will take control of the situation from now on. Lin asks the commander if this is a joke. The man replies that someone adult needs to take care of this. Suddenly, several phones in the room start ringing. The secretary with a terrified face tells the commander that there was an earthquake in Songshan County. Everyone is scared. The first prophecy has been fulfilled. The commander instructs his men to bring the protagonist for interrogation. At that moment, the head of security receives a call. He says that Shin disappeared before the eyes of the guards. The commander asks, scared, where the boy went. Suddenly, a voice in the corner of the room says that he is here. The protagonist sits comfortably in the chair as everyone looks at him. Shin apologizes for getting here so fast. He just wants to know the decision of the Special Affairs Department. Suddenly, an army of armed men approaches him. Shun admires the speed of the guards. One of the security guards demands that he raise his hands. The protagonist's eyes glow yellow and he raises all the weapons in the air, leaving the unarmed men on the ground. He tells the security guards not to waste time because it can't hurt him. The protagonist adds that they passed the test. Although it was a little disappointing, the quick agility in the approach was enough. The guys look at each other without understanding what this test is. Lin asks the commander if he can now continue with the prophecy. Shun says yes. In addition, he wants to see the result of the department's efforts. Lin agrees and talks to one of the paramedics. On the other end of the line, a man says that 2 old buildings in Songshan County collapsed. Just as predicted, thanks to the intervention of the fire brigade team, there were no victims of this earthquake. So the number of victims written in the prophecy could not be verified. The protagonist observes carefully. At that time, the department receives another call, but this one is not good. They are informed that just 12 minutes ago a small tsunami hit the coast of Virumala. They were unable to notify others of this disaster, so the number of victims corresponds exactly to what was written in the prophecy. The leaders are surprised. Lin says that in addition, the plane A3562 of the third prophecy has already taken off from the place of origin. They failed to intercept the flight. This means that if there is a strong storm, it is too late. According to the prophecy, it is expected that 157 passengers on board will not resist. The guy with glasses shouts, saying that they have to find a way. Lin replies that it is too late. There is no way to save a plane that is about to crash due to a natural disaster. Shin gets up from his chair and says that he will save all the passengers as a sign of loyalty to the department, since from now on they will work together. The protagonist arrives at the place where the disaster will happen and floats in the air in the middle of the lightning. Shin asks the system to analyze the situation. The system confirms a hurricane coming from the southwest towards the plane. It is currently at 50 kilometers per hour, but the speed continues to increase. At this rate, the hurricane will collide in 10 minutes with the plane at an extremely high speed. The protagonist holds his simple umbrella while thinking of a way to avoid this event. He comes to the conclusion that he only needs to move the plane away, since he cannot stop the hurricane from passing. While the plane continues towards its destination, the protagonist waits for the right moment and uses his magic ability, called Manifestation of Lightning, that transforms intangible lightning into an existence that can be touched. The pilot of the plane shouts, asking his companion if there is a man flying in front of him. In addition, he is holding a lightning bolt in his hands. The co-pilot replies that he thought he was seeing something. He says that someone who can hold a super strong current greater than 100 million volts, it can only be Superman. At that moment, the system tells the protagonist that the wind speed of the tornado was detected at 340 meters per second. There are 10 seconds left for the disaster. If he is going to do something, it has to be now. The protagonist understands the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, on the plane, the pilot realizes that something is wrong. The aircraft begins to be pulled into the storm. The plane is illuminated by a yellow light. The co-pilot says that the plane has stopped, but the engines continue to work. Suddenly, the protagonist appears in front of the plane. The system asks what he intends to do. Shun replies that he will take the plane out of the storm route. The system thinks it is dangerous because the speed can destroy the passengers. Meanwhile, the people inside the aircraft hold on to the seats with all their strength. The protagonist finally takes the plane off the path of disaster. He breathes a sigh of relief that everything went well. The passengers look out the window of the plane and see Shin flying. They wonder if this is an angel. Meanwhile, in the Department of Special Affairs, the commander is informed that they have returned to contact with the missing flight A3562. The aircraft lands and people start to leave, all safely. The press asks the pilot to tell the details of what happened. The man says that they were saved by a hero who flew in the storm. At that moment, the cameraman notices a movement and looks in the direction. He then sees the protagonist still flying above everyone. People also look and start commenting that this is the hero. He was the one who saved 150 people. The men of the Air Force see the people desperate to take a picture of this savior. A little later in the Special Affairs Department, the commander says that the 3 prophecies were really right. He apologizes to the protagonist for doubting his word. but they need to understand what caused it and how he learned of the events. Shun smiles when he realizes that the leaders of this world seem interested in protecting people. It's great for him to be able to count on this help. But now the boy doesn't know how he's going to explain the system human beings in any world will be. Between justice and self-interest, the protagonist believes that if you recruit and train these people, they will help, but also think about how to benefit. Thinking about it, the protagonist has an idea. He decides to say that he has an organization. In this way, Shin not only needs to issue orders on behalf of the organization, but also recruit talents from different worlds through it. At that moment, the protagonist decides to lie and tells everyone that he was sent here to investigate the cause of the apocalypse. Based on the estimates calculated by the organization, the causes of the apocalypse are varied, but it will definitely happen faster than they imagine. Lin asks what this organization is. Shun replies that he belongs to an organization called the Association for the Protection of Humanity. They constantly study the functioning of different parallel worlds. So when he predicts that the apocalypse is imminent, they send savior agents to investigate the cause. The savior usually works together with the people of that place to save the world. Lin is impressed. He says that Shin's organization must be a high-dimensional civilization with many saviors as powerful as him. The protagonist mentally says that his organization only has him. At that moment, the system appears and says that even if Shin is lying, it is important to have total control if he really wants to create an organization. The protagonist gets up and tells the men that according to the predictions, 3 years from now the human activity of this world will end. This means the extinction of humans. The leaders are shocked by this information. The commander asks why they should prepare since there is no way to prevent the apocalypse. He believes that Shun has shown enough strength to solve these disasters. The boy smiles and asks if he intends to cooperate. The commander apologizes for not believing before and makes it clear that he intends to help the boy in whatever is necessary. The protagonist asks him not to put so much hope in him, then shows a hologram of the world he dealt with earlier. The leaders begin to see several hungry zombies running. Shin explains that that world was almost extinct in a year because of a zombie virus. At first he didn't know what to do, but then he found a way to save humanity. That's when he discovered that there were less than 2 million people alive on the entire planet. The protagonist adds that the association understood that the task of saving humanity was completed. He asks if the guys know what this means. The men whisper to each other. Lin replies that it means that he saved humanity because he left 2 million people alive. The protagonist replies that he is right. In the end, no matter the number of people, as long as civilization can continue to reproduce. Shin explains that it depends on the leaders how many people will be saved, not from him. The commander makes it clear that people's lives are very important. He says that he will meet with the superiors immediately to grant authority to Shin, so he can mobilize all resources as soon as possible. A little later, the protagonist begins to leave the department building. He exhales that he was a little tired of all the chaos today. The boy presses the elevator button when suddenly there was a voice. A man approaches him introducing himself as the current president of the company Mo. His name is Mo Yuanbai. The man says that his daughter was very honored to serve the protagonist with his cooking. The protagonist remembers Boss Chio and understands who this man is. Yuanbai takes Shun's hand and says that he instructed his daughter to prepare a good meal for them. The protagonist looks at the man somewhat suspiciously. The old man tries to appear friendly and refers to the boy as savior, then reveals that he and his daughter don't believe in this apocalypse thing, but can feel that the protagonist really has some abilities. Shun starts to walk and the man follows in his footsteps. He says that the world was really in need of a hero who would attract a lot of fans. This was good for his image and they could take advantage of this apocalypse theme. At this moment, the protagonist stops walking and his tone of voice becomes serious. He says that Mr. Yuanbai is one of the few people who control the world's resources. So he assumes that at this point the old man already knows about the predictions and disasters that have been handed over to the Department of Special Affairs. Yuanbai realizes that the boy is very attentive. Shin soon says that he knows what the elderly man's. He fears that the apocalypse will affect his assets and his company. Yuanbai was caught off guard and is scared. The protagonist continues to say that it only takes a global tsunami to destroy billions of assets. He presses the elevator button and says that Yuanbai can completely pretend that the apocalypse does not exist, but he will never be at peace thinking about the possibility. The man observes the protagonist and wonders if this guy really thinks he is a hero. He can't believe that someone like Shin can save billions of people. Meanwhile, the protagonist stands there hoping for the elevator to arrive soon. Yuanbai approaches and says that as the boy knows, he has numerous companies around the world and it is very easy to finance a way to save people. So he offers money for the protagonist to create a spaceship. Shin understands that this is the way rich men used to save rich people. At this moment, he reaches the apex of anger and creates a mental illusion. Who sucks? Yuanbai in Shun says that the qualification to travel the worlds has nothing to do with power and wealth. Wherever he goes, he tries to make rich people understand this, but nothing helps. At this moment, the old man is in the palm of the protagonist's hand in a super small size. He looks at the boy with horror in his eyes and tries to run away. Shun says that these spaceships that the rich think of building are nothing more than titanium coffins. Yuanbai starts running through the illusory projection and sees everything the protagonist is saying. He starts screaming and is brought back to reality. The protagonist says that disasters don't recognize money. The man tries to calm down and realizes that those scenes seemed real. Shin smiles and says that the possibility of traveling to parallel worlds is real. The man is surprised. The boy then invites him to join his organization. If he accepts, the organization will guide him to the extraordinary path. Yuanbai thinks about this path. He found that illusory scene completely terrifying, so he thinks that if the apocalypse is really real, he has to find a way to stay safe. At that moment, the man asks what he needs to be recruited for his organization. Shun changes the subject a little and says he has a curiosity. The company MO is one of the most successful in the world, so he wants to know what Yuanbai can achieve if he mobilizes all his power at any cost. The man replies that he understands exactly what the boy means. At that moment, he will make a surveying everything he has so far in his company. Yuanbai adds that he will deliver the report later. A few minutes later, the two arrive at the special dining room that the old man has arranged. Shun asks the man to prepare a comfortable residence for him to stay in. Meanwhile, in the restaurant, Cho catches the attention of her employees. She says that Shun is a special guest invited by her father, so they can't make even a mistake. The girl remembers that the last time he disappeared without tasting his dishes, but now she will use her best skills to please the savior. She leaves the kitchen, telling the employees to continue preparing the dish, while she goes to see the special guest. The girl leaves, and the staff can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Suddenly a scream is heard. Cho looks at the television. The reporter informs about the incident with the plane. The system tells Shun that in this rescue he saved 238 lives and earned the equivalent points. The current total points are 1,270,000. Cho soon approaches the protagonist, surprised by the number of people he saved. Shun replies that it is nothing compared to the millions of people he has already rescued. At that moment, the system appears for the draw of the day. The protagonist needs to use the corresponding points to redeem the lottery items. Each draw costs 1,000 points, and at the moment he has 10,000 points for the game. Cho observes the system that is visible to everyone and asks if this is like a card game. Shun lies, saying that the association puts high-tech items from different worlds in this game, which is purely based on luck. Deep down we know that all this is a system thing. The only truth is that it is based on luck. The protagonist goes ahead and uses the maximum points of a card. The roulette wheel spins and a light comes out of the system, almost blinding everyone. The system then presents the item rescued by the protagonist, a mini artificial sun of blue quality. Shin doesn't like it because she already had one. Meanwhile, she is mesmerized by the quality of the item. She says mentally that this should be a military weapon only. The girl controls herself and asks Shun to continue with his card game. The boy continues to play several cards and receives more and more valuable items, but that again is useless because he already has it. In the last attempt, the protagonist hits the jackpot and wins 2 robots. The first is called Chiwu, multifunctional mechanic. The second is a fortress commander. The protagonist is happy to have achieved something useful. At this moment, the U-75 robot introduces itself, saying that it is equipped with a Type 2 artificial intelligence module, capable of protecting its safety. Suddenly, the robot says that it has detected the presence of firearms nearby. The security guards are scared. In a matter of seconds, the robot disarms the men. He disassembles the weapons and says that the danger has been eliminated. The robot also introduces herself. She says that she does not have the extraordinary combat power of the U-75. She is just an artificial intelligence developed from the super quantum computer of the Taylor-class air fortress. The robot adds that the air fortress is a huge fortress that can be suspended in the air for a long time, possessing energy shields and other technologies. Even at that moment, its true body is 3 kilometers high, overlooking the entire Earth. It continues to speak all its abilities and ends by saying that it now has control of the entire information network in the world. Shun observes her new items and declares that this will be her ultimate weapon, which is a little skeptical of this ability of the robot Taylor to connect to the World Wide Web with just the blink of an eye. The robot proves that she is telling the truth by leaking information from 2 employees of the place, named Zhang Wei and Li Meng. The 2 who have the leaked information are shocked. Taylor says that if necessary she can continue talking. The robot then invades a car where the members of the Special Affairs Department are. One of them is Lin and the other is Yong. Shun is happy with this incredible ability. The scene changes to the parking lot of Chen's residence. Yong and Lin are greeted by the U-75 robot. The guys start sweating in fear. Yong asks if this is a real robot or someone in disguise. Lin replies that this is high level. The robot seems to have consciousness. He then asks the companion not to show any fear. The robot tells the guys that it doesn't need formality and introduces itself as Chiwoo. Yong is startled by the humanoid form of this thing. A little later they meet with Shun, who presents some projections of the disasters that are currently happening in other places in this world. The boy notices the silence of the men and asks what is happening. Lin says that at the moment the protagonist saved that flight, he did not bother to protect his identity. Shun replies that he has no reason to hide. Lin despairs, saying that this news shocked the whole world. Everything will turn into complete chaos if people learn about the apocalypse. Yong also joins the conversation. He shows Shin a tablet while saying that there is a risk that foreign governments will blame the social unrest entirely on the protagonist. It will be difficult to change global opinion even with the help of the Special Affairs Department. Shin holds the tablet calmly and analyzes people's opinions on social media. Lin informs him that his superiors can help him hide his identity and reduce public criticism. He asks what the protagonist thinks of it. Shin replies that there is no need to intervene. Yong tries to say that some journalists can distort the facts and make him the villain, but the boy winks, clarifying that he will use exactly this space to spread his name everywhere. He adds that people are different. Some will fight until their last breath no matter what, but others will be consumed by fear. He questions who men think he wants to see at the end of it all. Lin replies that naturally those who resist, the protagonist confirms, but anyway he needs everyone to know that the apocalypse is coming. It's better to leave the decision to save themselves in people's hands, instead of letting them be destroyed peacefully in ignorance. The men note that this is the decision of the true savior. Shun reveals his goal. He will increase the influence of the organization so that more people know that the apocalypse is near. After that, he will select everyone who is willing to resist. Lin replies that he will help spread the information. A little later, the men leave the protagonist's residence. Accompanied by the robot, Yong tells Chiwoo that he must have the most amazing technology among Shin's main units. The robot replies that it is actually just a temporary level 11 AI experiment. It still has no mass production, so he can't say that it is the most amazing. The guys look silly when they hear the robot say that it's just a temporary experiment. The men drive the car while talking about what they have just seen. Yong says that he should report it to his superiors. The quality of this robot is surprising. Establishing good relations with Shun is having access to high technology. Certainly the partnership will give many advantages. The scene returns to the protagonist. The system says that tonight's mission is to closely monitor the reaction of countries to the apocalypse. Shun is sure that the great ruling leaders have begun to confront each other. Taylor asks if he needs to do something. He replies no, justifying that the selfishness of the rich is within their level of tolerance. Anyway, the most important thing is to prepare. He snaps his fingers and asks the system to exchange points for prediction. The system agrees and presents the following information. At 4:20 a.m. today, a fire will happen in the Supreme Apartments of Emden, in the city of Pharaoh. The fire will be caused by lightning. In this disaster, 525 people will be found without lives. Another 236 people will be injured. The system continues to give various predictions that will take place the rest of the month. The protagonist notes that a global volcanic eruption will happen in just 1 week and tens of millions of lives will be harmed. He calls the robot by the name of Ding and asks her to issue a warning on behalf of the association. Whoever believes it will survive. The scene changes to the Supreme Apartments of Emden in the city of Pharaoh. A girl enters the elevator complaining about how exhausted she is. The good news is that it is the weekend. The man next to her calls her by the name of Miss Rossetti. He says that he did not imagine that the editor-in-chief of a newspaper needed to work overtime. She replies that it's because of so much bad news that has come out recently. There are storms happening everywhere. Ralph gets out of the elevator saying he needs more people like her at work. He was thinking of recommending her. Rossetti tells Ralph not to play with it. After that, she enters the house and is greeted by her children. Rossetti says that it's already 1 in the morning and they should be sleeping. The girl points to the television and says that that woman asked them to evacuate. Ding starts to say that this is a warning from the Organization Defense of Humanity. She talks directly to Rossetti and asks her to leave with her children. From the Emden apartments immediately, Ding adds that this is not a notification, this is a warning. Rossetti does not understand the gravity of the situation. In fact, she thinks that her TV has been hacked by a hacker. Ding reaffirms that he is not joking. The organization has identified that the Emden apartments will be consumed by fire in 25 minutes. after lightning strikes the building. Rossetti says that this is impossible because his building has lightning. The robot's voice spreads throughout the apartment, and she says that the prediction of the Human Protection Organization has never been wrong. Rossetti can choose to give up on her life and that of her children, but his responsibility is to warn about the danger that will happen. While Rossetti is worried, her son thinks it's amazing that Ding can access all the devices in his house. Suddenly they hear a knock on the door. Ralph asks if Rossetti also has a problem with the devices. The woman opens the door and comes across several neighbors in the hallway. They also received the warning to evacuate. Everyone is confused by this whole situation, wondering if he should believe it or not. Rossetti wonders how that woman managed to hack into everyone's information network. A man approaches complaining about receiving these warnings. He says he will definitely sue the television brand for allowing these hackers to enter. At that moment, Rossetti thinks of something and turns to Ralph, remembering that he is a computer engineer. Then she asks what her opinion is about it. Ralph replies that her opinion is that he will follow the warning. Rossetti is surprised that he believes it. Ralph asks the woman if she hasn't realized by now that that thing is calling everyone by name. There is no computer virus that can take over all electronic devices simultaneously. Ralph adds that he thinks that thing on television isn't even a real human being. It could be an artificial intelligence with extremely high technology. Rossetti is paralyzed when he hears this. Ding appears on the phone and confirms that she is an artificial intelligence, then informs her that there are 13 minutes left and they must evacuate. Ralph starts running without a second thought and tells Rossetti to bring his children outside now. The woman complains about him believing in a hacker, but the man asks her to think about the children's lives. The other neighbor asks how they can believe such nonsense. The little girl asks her mother if she is not going to leave. Some people believe the warning and start to leave the building. A few minutes later, most have already evacuated from the building. A torrential rain begins to fall. Rossetti is in the crowd with her children. She decided to believe the warning for the children. The neighbor complains that the hacker just wanted them to stay in the rain. Rossetti looks up believing that it is just a storm. She thinks it's a lie, the warning about lightning being so strong that it can consume the entire building. At that moment, Ding warns that the time has come. Suddenly a powerful lightning bolt falls on the building. Everyone can see that strong yellow light. Some people who didn't obey the warning start jumping from the floors, covered by fire. The crowd downstairs looks at it terrified. They start calling the fire department. The boy asks his mother if this would have happened to them too, if they had stayed in the building. Rossetti accesses the phone looking for such a hacker, but sees that his device is returned to normal. The neighbors comment on the house having been destroyed, but at least everyone down there is alive, all thanks to that woman who hacked into their phones. Meanwhile, in the protagonist's house, the system reveals that 67% of the people evacuated and survived. Ding tells the protagonist that he doesn't understand why they didn't believe her. The robot apologizes for not completing the task that Shin gave. He replies that it's not her fault. Many people prefer not to trust the unknown. The robot says that most obeyed the warning and saw with their own eyes what happened. Suddenly she realizes the protagonist's real goal. He doesn't want to save as many people as possible. He wants most people to hear about the apocalypse and about his organization. Shin confirms that she is right. They need to raise the profile of the organization to protect humans as soon as possible. One day everyone will hear about them and will seek survival based on their instincts. The system appears and shares that it thinks exactly like Shun. If at least a few tens of thousands of people survive, it is enough for humanity not to go extinct. The next day, everywhere comments on the predictions of the Organization for the Protection of Humanity. Yong and Lin are in the car. The radio shows various opinions about the savior. Yong complains that the media is more concerned with the protagonist than with the incidents. Lin exhales, exhausted that this savior will have to work hard. The scene changes to Ralph, who is surrounded by reporters and cameraman. The journalist asks what the engineer thinks of this difficult and scary smart home control. Ralph replies that first of all he wants to thank the Human Protection Organization for saving his life. The reporter tries to discredit this organization, but the engineer makes it clear that he is only alive because of them. So go thank the organization with all your heart. Besides, humanity is at a lower level than this savior, who can predict disasters. Suddenly Ralph gets excited and takes the microphone. He approaches the camera and asks the owner of the organization to please recruit him. The guy even says he doesn't need a salary. The protagonist is comfortably at home watching this. The robots comment that the master strategy worked. Shun believes that the chances of victory will be greater and greater with these talents joining the association. Ding informs that the interview with that engineer is being commented on all social networks. The hero is happy with this news and asks her to create a talent profile to collect the information. He also tells Ding to analyze his personality and mental state. She agrees. At that moment, the members of the Special Affairs Department arrive at his house. Yong comments that even though Shin saved a lot of people in yesterday's fire, most of the reports are still negative. The protagonist replies that it doesn't matter if it's negative or positive, because the end of the world has already begun. The guys are left with their eyes bulging in denial. Shin lies, saying that he contacted the organization to make a prediction for the next week. The bad news is that he discovered the beginning of the disaster. Yong shouts that he thought they had more time. Shin calmly replies that this is just the beginning, probably 10 million people will watch. Yong despairs, asking if 10 million lives will be lost. Shin replies that it will be. In one fell swoop, this made the guys more scared than before. The protagonist says that this is the end of the world. He will do everything so that humanity is not extinct, but they need to be aware that some people are gone in the process. Shin shows a projection about the next incident. The men observe below their feet a volcano. Shin explains that there are still more than 500 active volcanoes in the world. This time, the prophecy shows that almost all volcanoes will erupt, even the ones that are inactive. The earthquakes and tsunamis caused by them will hit the cities. Lin starts to break out in a cold sweat and asks how this can happen. Some volcanoes have been inactive for thousands of years and do not show any signs of activity. The protagonist replies that he doesn't know either. The forecast only informs the results. But anyway, they don't have time to find out the cause. Yong says that there are 800 volcanoes in the country with more than 10 million inhabitants around. They will need much more time to transfer these people safely. Lin asks if the organization can't do anything. Shin gives a smile and says that for the association to do something, they need to show how powerful their civilization is. Lin replies that he will inform the superiors about it and they will resist the disaster. The scene changes to a high school in Yuanchang City. The students comment on a message they received on their phones from the Human Protection Organization. They think it's someone impersonating the organization. The message says that the nearby volcanoes will erupt and they need to leave the city. A student says that their city is the place with the most inactive volcanoes, so there is no way for a volcano to erupt now. So the students assume that it is a fake message. Suddenly the teacher comes in and asks them to pay attention. She informs them that a national emergency warning has been sent by the government. Most of them must already know what it is about because they received the alert message from the Human Protection Organization. The government believes in the forecast, and that's why the city has entered a state of emergency. The students are surprised because at first they thought it was just a fake message. The teacher adds that everyone should go to a safe area within, for kilometers, along with millions of other city residents. The scene changes to the city center. The reporters and radios notify about the evacuation of people. Obviously, some disbelieve this organization, believe that it is just theory, but others are already moving with suitcases and everything. The police try to organize the traffic so that everyone can leave as soon as possible. At this moment, the reporter tries to inform about the state of the city. In 1 hour, more than 78,000 stores were closed in all affected cities. People are already on their way to the designated places to wait safely. Some companies have instructed their employees to join the volunteers. The number is still increasing. While this was happening, the protagonist flew under the city to observe how things are going. The system says that things look better than expected. The locals started to leave even before the army arrived to help. Ding says that the army has arrived. The commander in charge of the evacuation is being chased by the reporters at the airport. The system replies that this is expected, since everyone wants to break the news firsthand. The scene changes to the airport. Commander Hong is surrounded by journalists and can barely move. He was asked if he believes he can evacuate the entire city in 4 days. Someone also asks if he believes this forecast. Commander Hong replies that he is confident that everyone will be saved. All resources will be transferred to the evacuation zone, and they are doing everything they can at that time. The system shows the protagonist the hologram of this commander's interview. Shin believes that Hong is a talented general, different from the others, at which point the reporter gets close to Hong and asks why he is believing in a conspiracy theory of an organization that doesn't even exist. The commander gets stressed by this question. He starts screaming that the lives of the residents are at risk. If they don't believe it and it's true, people can end up getting hurt. Hong goes up to the reporter and says that the Irish earthquake that happened 20 minutes ago was on that forecast list. So as the man believes that everyone should turn a blind eye to this, if everything the organization says really happens, the protagonist sees this scene and is happy. Ding warns that some actions are being taken by the main leaders of most countries. She shows that she still has a lot of negative opinion about the organization on the internet. Shen replies that this is normal. Ding goes on to say that cities like Yuanchang are already on the move to protect themselves, but foreign countries are a bit in conflict. In fact, they have left the decision to protect themselves in the hands of the population. Some rulers said they did not believe in predictions. but decided to send volcano experts and geologists to investigate the volcanic site. The leaders of most of the places in the forecast took a stand on the internet. One of them said that he was not going to restrict anyone from leaving the danger zone. He believes that the people who received and believed in the warning can leave on their own. The ruler also blamed the eastern countries for letting an organization spread disinformation to other countries. The protagonist followed some of these public opinions and decided to let these rulers fend for themselves. It was better to focus on the people who wanted to be saved. The scene goes back to that high school. The teacher asks the students not to panic. A boy asks his friend if he believes in this prediction of the Organization for the Protection of Humanity. The guy replies yes. The teacher asks them to form a line. The student with yellow hair starts to make a live broadcast, showing how the evacuation will be in his school. The teacher asks the boy to stop playing, and he says he has 100,000 followers, so he has to pass on the information. The boy also calls everyone a fool for believing in a silly prediction. Suddenly the whole place starts shaking, the birds fly in fear, and someone shouts that it is an earthquake. The system informs Shin that a magnitude 2 earthquake has just occurred in the city of Yuanchang. People need to flee as soon as possible. The protagonist is frightened by the sign of volcanic eruption before the expected time. He was taken by surprise. The scene changes to the army headquarters. Hong says that they need to hurry. Earthquakes are happening all the time before the expected time. Now there is no guarantee that they will be able to get everyone out. He asks one of the captains to personally guide the first convoy out of the city to safety. The man shows a sign of respect and agrees. A little later in the city of Yuanchang, the army informs that this is a sign before the eruption of the volcano. They must gather in front of the designated vehicles to evacuate as planned. The residents form an anxious line. The guards again ask no one to leave or put themselves in danger for the lives of others. The army is there exactly to help them. One of the captains says that the first bus will take only the elderly and the children, but you don't have to worry because no one will be left behind. The villagers are happy. The protagonist follows the scene closely and asks Ding if, according to his calculations, they will be able to evacuate in time. Ding replies that if there is no extra problem, it is enough to put everyone on the evacuation route before the volcano erupts. Ding accesses some information and says that the time until the volcano erupts is 92 hours and 32 minutes. There are still a few million residents who need to leave. Suddenly she notices something and screams, calling Shin. The robot says that something wrong seems to have happened. The scene returns to the captain inside the bus. He receives bad news and asks for it. That the driver stops immediately. It turns out that the highway is unfit for use. After that small earthquake, some rocks slid onto the highway. Now the buses cannot pass. The residents start to get scared. The captain wonders how such a problem can happen right now. The driver asks if he will contact anyone. The captain remembers the protagonist and thinks he can't give up like that. Everyone waits for an answer. The man then orders his soldiers to gather with the others and take stone by stone from the path. They can't wait, sitting for a miracle to happen. The next moment the soldiers start digging. Ding says that at least they didn't complain. Instead of starting to think of a solution, the protagonist agrees. The captain begins to lift the stones when he suddenly sees an extremely strong yellow light. He looks, trying to understand what it is, and sees a silhouette. The protagonist says that the savior has arrived and orders him to retreat. The next moment a strong explosion descended to the stones. The men cover themselves with their hands to protect themselves, then open their eyes and see the protagonist floating. Shin says that the captain finally understood his words. That's why he decided to come and help. Everyone has admiring looks. The captain says that the savior came to help them, so everyone must go back to the bus. The teenagers take out their cell phone to film what they believe to be the Superman. Shin again uses his ability to remove the rocks from the place. The villagers look out the bus window for the rocks to be sucked up and then thrown into the nearby forest. Someone even comments that this looks like an action movie scene. Shun orders them to move on. The captain agrees and asks the driver to speed up. He thinks internally that thanks to the savior, everything worked out. A few days pass. The system informs the number of people who still need to evacuate and the time for the eruption. Currently, the disaster is expected to happen in 43 hours. The protagonist takes a deep breath and says that the number of people alive depends on his own choices. A little boy on the bus tells his father that he is seeing a man flying. The father replies that this is the savior who is protecting them. The next day arrives and there are 6 hours left for the disaster. The remaining population of the city is 500,000. Commander Hong says that at 12 noon all civilians must be out. The volunteers will be the last to leave. The system transmits the information to the protagonist. He is happy to see that the commander is prioritizing people's lives, then turns to Ding and asks how the rest of the world is preparing for this. She replies that they seem totally unprepared. The scene changes to a foreign country. A very important geologist hears the latest news about the volcano that is cited in the predictions of the Organization for the Protection of Humanity. The news tells that China faithfully trusts the forecasts. The city of Yuanchang transferred almost 20 million people in 4 days. It seems that the Chinese government used all available forces to do this. The geologist listens carefully and says that this prediction is a big nonsense. The driver comments that his country has the best geologists and specialists. They checked the places of the prophecy and saw nothing different. The volcanoes are still inactive. A little later, the geologist enters the office with a student. He asks the guy to contact the laboratory in Europe and keep an eye on the data. The student replies tirefully that he doesn't have a minute of peace. Suddenly, the machine in the office starts beeping and the geologist runs to see what's going on. The student says that this is not an ordinary vibration. The teacher fears that the news about volcanic eruptions all over the planet is really real, but he still doesn't understand where the source comes from. The student screams in fright that the vibrations come from the center of the Earth, and they ignored the center of the Earth. The geologist orders him to report on all the subterranean fluctuations they have just detected. The student obeys. An hour later, the two stand in front of the machine. The teacher realizes that 67% of the places are compromised. He ends up dropping his glasses in such frustration. The student asks what he understood from the calculation. The geologist remembers that all this was announced in advance by the Organization for the Protection of Humanity, an organization that he did not believe. The scene changes to Shun. Ding says that his master was right. The famous geologist named Stephen Stretch issued a statement. He admitted his mistake and instructed the villagers to flee as soon as possible to save their lives. The protagonist admits that this is desperate, but it seems that no one is trying to do anything to save people. Ding replies that Stephen tried to contact the media and influential people to warn the public, but the ruling leaders did not take the warning seriously. In fact, they seemed to consider Stephen a clown. Meanwhile, a newspaper goes on a live broadcast with a foreign ruler named Jonah. The journalist says that there are 15 minutes left according to the prophecy for the volcano to erupt. He asks if Jonah and his friends are nervous. The ruler is right now right next to one of the deactivated volcanoes, that according to the forecast it will erupt. Jonah laughs, saying that he is not worried at all. It is such a beautiful place that he cannot even imagine who could say something like this about this piece of nature. The journalist warns that geologist Stephen has just issued a statement, saying that the prediction of the Organization for the Protection of Humanity is true. Jonah bursts into laughter and says that this journalist must have accepted some bribe. At that moment, the protagonist takes a deep breath and says that it is a shame. Suddenly time runs out and the volcanoes erupt, surprising everyone who disbelieved it. The ruler, who was smiling just now, changes his expression to terror. The volcano in front of him begins to break. Meanwhile, Commander Hong breathes a sigh of relief. His team managed to retreat everyone in time. Suddenly, a soldier approaches asking him to be careful. The commander contacts the other captains and makes it clear that some earthquakes will start, so they should be aware of the danger and stay as far away as possible. Shun watches the tremors getting stronger and asks what is the probability that everyone will successfully escape. Ding replies that according to her data, the probability of everyone surviving before the eruption is 26%. Suddenly she remembers the last group of people who stayed behind and fears that they will face the volcano's lava head-on. The protagonist replies that a miracle can happen. Ding thinks that these 80,000 people will not be able to escape. Suddenly a car accelerates on the highway. The robot detects the abnormal pressure. She calculates that there is a 64% chance of the vehicle breaking down. The soldier realizes that he can no longer control the car. He looks outside and sees the bus with the residents. Without finding another option, he maneuvers to the left and throws himself off the highway. The car breaks the highway protection barrier and falls down there. Ding is shocked seeing how this soldier prioritized the lives of others. Shin asks what the percentage is now for everyone to stay alive. She starts to do the calculations and the protagonist looks down. The soldier gets out of the car alive. Ding replies that the chance has improved to 86%. Shun smiles, saying that miracles happen. A few seconds before the eruption of the volcano in Yuanchang City, all personnel successfully evacuated. The countdown begins. The protagonist welcomes the apocalypse. Suddenly, the whole site begins to explode. The buildings collapse. The volcano in Yuanchang City erupted at the scheduled time. The outbreak level is more than 7, the second strongest intensity ever recorded in the country. Everything was destroyed. The volcanic eruption caused a magnitude 6 earthquake. The range is more than 120 kilometers. The last buses with the residents continue to drive at full speed. The commander asks not to panic. The drivers must continue driving. Suddenly the driver brakes and tells the captain that they are in trouble. Hong is on the bus behind. He asks what happened and why they stopped. The driver replies that maybe it is too late for them. The road is totally broken, they cannot continue. Young is on the front bus safely. He calls the commander completely desperate, then suggests going with some soldiers to try to rescue them. But the commander refuses. He asks if Young can't tell the difference between the important and the urgent. Hong says that the buses that manage to pass unharmed should continue. This is an order. Young doesn't think it's fair for the commander to stay behind and not be saved. Being that he prioritized everyone, Hong repeats that they must go. Young starts to cry. At that moment, Commander Hong gets off the bus and looks at the disaster on the road. He realizes that he really won't make it. The soldier approaches and says that everything will be fine. If someone gets injured, they can carry it on their backs. Hong seriously asks how long he has been a soldier. The man is silent in surprise. The commander then asks if he is married. The soldier replies that he has been in the army for almost 2 years and has a wife. Hong gives a convinced smile that he cannot do anything else and asks the soldier to make a call to his wife. The man gets emotional, already knowing that there will be no way out. Suddenly, a soldier on the bus points upwards. Everyone turns around trying to understand what happened. At that moment, a huge spaceship hovers over their heads. A silhouette moves this ship as if it were nothing. The protagonist appears in front of everyone exuding his skills. The immensity of the spaceship is the most shocking to everyone. Shun is accompanied by the system and his robots. Ding asks them not to panic because they are here to do the rescue. The commander believes that even if this ship can accommodate everyone on board, it cannot land softly because of the earthquakes. In addition, the weight of the ship alone is enough to cause even greater damage. Suddenly, the protagonist descends after Hong and says that this is why he came here in person. The commander looks back and asks if he is the savior. Shin smiles and tells Hong to organize people because his allies will take them. The commander agrees but has a doubt. He asks if Shin is not going to land the ship. Meanwhile, the locals try to understand what it is. Some ask if they are aliens and others ask if they are going to record a movie. Suddenly, the place starts to shake. The protagonist asks if it is an earthquake. Ding replies yes. The door of the spaceship opens and the villagers look at it. Ding informs them that the air fortress is ready. They just need to enter the transporter in an orderly manner. At that moment, people begin to float towards the ship, wrapped in a light. The commander looks around as he climbs. He says that the city that was built with so much effort by millions of people is ruined. In the end, the most important thing is that people are alive, so they can build everything again. The students start to find it fun to fly. Suddenly, a boy loses his balance and leaves the light that was transporting him. The student thinks that everything is over, but when he opens his eyes, he sees himself inside the ship with the other people. He doesn't know what happened, but he is satisfied. At that moment, a hologram of Shin appears. The villagers pay attention. The protagonist says that they are going to the safe zone, then says that he would like to ask everyone a favor. Shin asks those who have any communication device to connect to the ship's network and make a live broadcast.